Hey, what's up? I'm Jacob Soboroff. You are watching Connect on this Saturday. This week, the President of the United States revived his long-running list of lies about the 2020 election. Fraud, foreign interference, and of course, the deep state. And now the people who run our nation's elections, some of the most civic-minded people in this country are bracing for the midterms. And when I say bracing, I mean it. As MS Now's Hunter Woodall reports, quote, few offices in the Trump era have proved as consequential or as politically exposed as that of a state's chief election official. And it was by chance that most of the nation's secretaries of state were in South Dakota for a long-planned conference on the same day that Trump spoke, trading notes on their work, then scrambling to navigate the latest turn from the man who has fundamentally remade it. Woodall adds, once the rhetoric comes down from on high, they are the ones left trying to convince voters that their ballots still count, a case each of them is eager to make in their own state about their own system. In other words, as the president undermines the faith in our elections, it's up to state and local officials to clean up his mess, to convince their constituents that it is, in fact, safe to vote, and to counter the president's effort to erode trust in our election system. The timing could not be more consequential. Voters are going to head to the polls in just a few days to cast their ballots in several primaries in Arizona and in South Dakota. And the midterms are 109 days away. And yet, here's the president in a primetime address sowing yet more doubt about and in our elections with little to no proof. On Thursday night, there were plenty of references to foreign interference. You heard the claim that China acquired millions of U.S. voter files, which Trump's own documents do not support. And another familiar claim about the Venezuelan government. Trump alleged Maduro digitally altered vote totals in 2020. The same old, you can't trust the voting machines line that we have been hearing for the past 6 years. But the declassified documents released by the White House tell another story. They refute this. The intelligence community found that America's, quote, vote tabulation systems would be difficult to manipulate on a wide enough scale to compromise election results. Did you hear that? If that weren't enough, a member of Trump's own election task force, this guy John Solomon, spoke to MS Now's Vaughn Hilliard and admitted that there's no proof that China or Venezuela or anyone changed the vote for Joe Biden in 2020.
And so the 2020 election was, in fact, the results as we, the American public.
I'm still researching, so let me. This is the first.
But there's no intelligence.
Not yet.
There is no intelligence that the election would have said that Donald Trump was president.
The president said that tonight.
We gotta go. We gotta go. We gotta go. No wonder they want to run away. After a 25-minute speech, after more than 270 pages of declassified documents, what changed? Not much. But with voting already underway in key states, the consequences are extraordinarily real. In Arizona, where voters head to the polls this week, the legacy of Trump's false claims about the 2020 election still hang over Maricopa County. That is the country's second largest voting jurisdiction and one that has spent years defending the integrity of its elections. And again, now, local election officials, not the White House, are left trying to restore confidence in a system that President Trump continues to question. Stephen Richer, the former Maricopa County recorder, and Adrian Fontes, Arizona's Secretary of State. We're talking about President Trump's speech on Thursday and threats to America's election system. Secretary Fontes, on Friday, I'm sure you saw this, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Markwayne Mullin, had something to say to state election officials like yourself. Let's listen to that.
If the election officials, once we gave them the information they need to secure their elections, and they chose not to, then those individuals can also be held accountable by fines, by penalties, and even, depending on how far it goes, prison time.
What the hell is he talking about? The information they need to secure their elections. Do you have any idea, seriously, what does he mean?
Well, you know, a local publication quoted me as saying he can go suck on a salt lick. The guy has no idea what he's talking about. Professional election administrators like myself are really, I'm sick and tired of being insulted by these folks who are completely ignorant as to how these systems work. And one of the things that Stephen said earlier was really important. You learn as you go. And as you get involved in local election administration and you watch what's happening, you can really appreciate the checks and balances, the detailed systems, the really important quality assurance that we go through every single election. My office not only certifies every election official that handles ballots in the entire state, but we do logic and accuracy testing of every single tabulator that is going to be handling ballots every single election. And as Stephen also mentioned, we do audits on the backside as well. So I don't know what these folks are talking about. It's a perpetuation of the campaign of grievance that Donald Trump has continued on. And maybe he's setting something up to try to make some excuses for what might be happening in the fall. But we believe as election administrators, and I truly mean this, and I think Stephen will agree, outcomes be damned. We're here to serve our voters, not politicians. We're here to make sure that democracy moves forward as that global example of how the consent of the governed matters, even more now than you could say, that we're facing this internal threat than we did back 250 years ago with that external threat.
Just want to make sure I got it right. What did you tell him to do?
To suck on a salt lick. I grew up on a ranch, Jacob. You can Google it.
It's okay. I'm going to just write that down. Suck on a salt lick. Got it. Steve, what was your reaction to the threat?
Well, it's a heck of a way to recruit temporary election workers, which is always something that election workers throughout the country are concerned about. But here you have somebody, the top official for the Department of Homeland Security, saying that he's going to look for an excuse to arrest you and to throw you into prison. So I don't think that's the type of messaging we need in the buildup to this election. And furthermore, I think that there's no reason to think that any election official in the United States is doing something like that. In fact, the only prominent election official that's ever faced charges is Tina Peters from Mesa County, Colorado.
Yes.
And she was doing it in support of Donald Trump's continued theories that the 2020 election was stolen. As Adrian said, I think this is all just rooted in a unwillingness to accept one result. Adrian and I have both lost elections. He lost in a major landslide to me. So, you know, by 5,000 votes out of 2 million. But we accepted it. We moved on because that's how democracy works. And Adrian showed an immense amount of maturity. I hope I showed that maturity as well. President Trump is very okay with accepting his 2024 victory, still cannot accept his 2020 defeat.
Why is he so obsessed with Arizona, Secretary Fontes? Arizona's been at the center of election conspiracy theories for years. And also, again, in all seriousness, how has that had to, I mean, I remember in terms of watching my colleagues be there after the presidential elections when Donald Trump was questioning the legitimacy, security changes, other operational changes. Walk me through what it means to be at the center of conspiracy theories like that for an election administrator in a state like yours.
I don't know why he's so obsessed with Arizona. I mean, Arizona is, in my humble opinion, the absolute best state in the union. Our flag is awesome. We've got great food. The people are amazing. But as far as the technology and the things that we've adjusted and changed, it's really not that much. We've done a lot of fine tuning on some of our systems. We certainly have had to increase security because the doubts that he's cast on our systems have really increased a lot of the threats that our election workers and our staff have faced, myself, my family. I know Stephen has also had to have increased security. So all of that is unfortunate, but we keep up with the times. In fact, we keep ahead of the times. And if we'd had a state legislature that bothered to fund elections fully, or as I've testified several times on Capitol Hill, a federal government that was a partner and not an adversary in administering our elections, we'd be a heck of a lot better off and in a much better place. And the bottom line is this: elections express the will of the people. And I think Donald Trump and his ilk are really afraid of the people, and that expresses our real power. So my message to voters is they're afraid of you. They're afraid of you. Get out there and vote because you're the ones with the power, not the trust fund babies, not the whiners and the folks that are just griping. You're the ones with the power. Use it.
Preach. Amen. And you learn something new every day. Suck on a salt lick. I Googled it. You guys should Google it, too. Stephen Richer, former Maricopa County Recorder, the CEO of Republic Affairs, and Adrian Fontes, the Democratic Secretary of State in Arizona. In all sincerity, thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate it.